watching an imperial civil war break out, redesigning the entire Vortian government, and fighting off new enemies that I've never even met before? Things are getting political in this one, so strap in and watch me make decisions that are either gonna break the realm or make it. Today I played 800 Days of Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord. The war with the Aserai has been going on for way too long. I honestly don't even know why they attacked me in the first place. They're literally half of the continent away from me. Apparently, they're not my biggest threat right now though. These rebels killing innocent Vortians are. These guys have absolutely no clue what's about to hit them. Well, that was easy. Now you're my prisoner. Oh no, here we go again. I guess the Aserai and rebels were taking turns of who was trying to annoy me. A pretty large army of around 400 Aserai troops were heading directly towards Marinoth. I headed straight towards the castle and tried to rally all of the nobles that I possibly could. Wow, food production is pretty low. I hope we get those orchards up as fast as possible, especially if we're going to be holding out another siege. After getting distracted with the apple orchards, I came up with a little strategy. I was going to try and lure the soldiers away from the castle, so that way I would be able to get the extra Vortian troops in my party before we had to defend it. Come on. Wait, what the heck? The plan ended up going 10 times better than I thought it was going to. It was pretty hilarious because Furinhard had completely run right past my party and into the enemy party with no fear. These brave actions sent the Aserai running. In a matter of fact, it scared them so much that they proposed peace. Now that's what I call perfect timing. I was just saying how I wanted the war to end, and surely enough, we now ended it. It looks like I won't be needing the army after all. Once it was official that we were no longer at war, I checked in on the politics of the realm. Our relationship with Vlandia is still really strong. The Aserai were now paying us, and unfortunately, we were paying the Sturgians. I think I know who we're going to be targeting next. Out of absolutely nowhere, Pen Cannoc had a rebellion. I could have sworn this settlement already rebelled a couple different times. The Vlandians need to get their things together. Just for the sake of checking it out, I led my party over to the front of the settlement. It looked like the Vlandians were already on it and sieging the castle back. You already know, if they weren't on top of it, Pen Cannoc would have been ours. Having no hope that we were gonna get a free settlement, I made my way over to Sianon. It's pretty ironic because we got this settlement from a rebellion, so basically free. With the war just ending with the Aserai, I never got to sell off any of the loot that I got. This seemed like the perfect occasion to get rid of it all, or at least however much I could. I ended up making around 14,000 dinars and still had some loot left over. At this point, I felt that my army had been rebuilt since I had last been taken prisoner. The only thing is, I felt like a lot of my troops were very weak. Let's just say the Battanian unit types don't seem to be the best, besides their archers. This made me go on a mass upgrading streak with all of the troops that could get a promotion. I then decided that I needed to head back into the Vlandian lands to try and get some better units. We all know that Vlandian horsemen are overpowered. Now, who would have guessed that's what I came here for? I replaced as many low-tier troops that I could with Vlandian horsemen. I then headed to Carbanseth, which I was informed that there were a lot of my companions just hanging out around the city. Hey, what the heck? You guys aren't just supposed to be sitting here at the tavern. Real quick, if you're enjoying the video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for more. If you want to get more involved in the Vortide community, check out the Discord linked down below. There is some really cool lore that brings some of the videos together, and a cool leveling system. Join now. I ended up bringing Thakir and Shumsin back into my party. I really didn't want them to just sit around and do nothing for any longer. So I talked to Udris, the carpenter, and got 2 caravans going, one for each of them. That's right guys, go out there and make the kingdom some money. Caravans honestly are pretty expensive to set up. I always end up paying around 22,000 dinars just to get a little bit better troops to keep them secure. I wouldn't do it any other way though, just because I don't want any old bandit group coming by and taking out our caravan because I didn't want to spend a little extra on better troops. It had been a while since I last checked in on the skills of every noble in the Vortian kingdom. Varric had quite a bit to unlock. He had a roguery skill point and a steward skill point that I got to assign. Honestly, the Steward one was the only one I really cared about, just because it increased tax income by 10%. Now that's pretty good. Alda, on the other hand, had a lot more perks that needed to be assigned. The first one was a Steward perk. It was basically a decision between minus 25% troop wages while being a part of an army, or discarding armor to get experience for the troops. The second set of perks that I had to pick between was plus 10% tariff income in governed settlements, or just getting plus a 10% tax income. I really didn't plan on having Alda govern a castle anytime soon, so I think you know which one I picked. The next decision was in leadership. I picked between giving lower tier troops experience every day versus giving it to higher tier troops. I ended up choosing the first decision. The next one was easy. I had to choose between getting plus 30% healing rate when standing still or plus 15% when moving. I obviously went with the moving one. The last set was in the one-handed skills. It pretty much came down to having longer shield bashes or better one-handed weapon handling. Shield bashes for the win. Finally, the last person I need to level up, Sylvan. I got to decide if she would be better at archery on horseback or using melee weapons. I went with the second one. After making sure that the nobles of the realm were properly guided, I headed over to Marinoth. Since we recently had just recaptured it, I wanted to make sure that the loyalty wasn't getting too low. To my surprise, everything was looking stable in the city. I was happy that I was managing the settlement pretty well. Things were going successfully. That made me decide that it was now time to expand the kingdom once again. I headed out on the look for a new companion. So far, I've found most of my companions in the Vlandian and Old Battanian lands. This inspired me to head over to the Sturgians and check their cities for good companions. It really only made sense to do this, because the Vlandian cities, and now my cities, no longer have any more good companions. So Sturgia it is. Ah, who's this? Anbard Bellows Breath. Let's see your stats. Oh, never mind. So far, I checked 2 different settlements, walked over a very sketchy rock bridge, and finally arrived at Balgard. The second that I checked the tavern there, I saw a companion that had no bad traits. Welcome to the team, Gelthar. In addition to having no bad traits, Gelthar had a pretty good backstory. For his previous lord, he tracked people down. This one time in particular, he tracked down some outlaws. Once his previous lord came in, he completely slaughtered all of the enemies, and any survivors, he hung. Apparently, he even hung the young outlaws who couldn't even grow beards. That story is what made Gelthar stop serving his old lord. Gelthar seemed like a morally correct person, so I had to fill him in on what was about to happen, because it might seem a little bit cruel. I told him that the Sturgians have declared war on us when we were at our weakest points, especially back when we only had one castle. They tried to take it directly from us. He seemed to understand and said that he would back the kingdom of Vortia. I think I know who's going to be the next clan leader. I called to arms all of the Vortian nobles. My plan was to take back Uthelheim Castle. It was a little bit weird though, because it seemed like the Sturgians knew what we were up to. Well, that's kind of annoying. That was my rally location. As I thought about this though, it was actually a very good thing, because all of the Sturgian troops got together in one location and were waiting to be slaughtered by my army. Well, here goes nothing. To war! I think this was our 4th or 5th Vortian-Sturgian war, but this one was going to be different. We're going to take over all of their cities and castles. This battle was going to be easy. I heavily outnumbered the Sturgians, so I ended up sending my troops in without even having to lift a finger. I'm not gonna lie, that battle hit us harder than I thought it was going to. We had around 980 troops before the battle. Now we're down to around 700. I guess a lot of them are still healing, but still, that was intense. As I besieged Uthelheim, more and more of my troops started to recover, so our numbers were looking good once again. It also appeared that Uthelheim only had around 150 defenders, so this was an easy battle. We did take heavy losses though. Whatever, it's worth it. It's been almost 100 days since we last had control of this castle. After letting my troops recover a little bit, I noticed a pretty large Sturgian army heading directly for us. Maybe we won't be controlling this castle for very long. The Sturgians low-key juked me out. It looked like they were heading towards Uthelheim, then turned back, got some more troops, and ran right past it. I'm gonna have to follow them, aren't I? I'm thinking that their plan is to find any castle or town that looks a little bit weak, and then sieging it. The Sturgian party made it pretty far into our territory. That wasn't until a Vlandian party of over 1,000 started chasing them, and I actually caught them. We outnumbered the enemies by around 1,000, which is pretty crazy. Obviously, we won that battle. My troops have been earning a ton of XP. We just took over a castle and won a pretty large battle. It's time to level them up, or at least the ones that can. We barely lost any troops from that last fight. However, the army is still suffering from attrition, so I disbanded it and let everyone take a breather. Alright, let's get some more troops. That's not too bad. After a day or so passed, I headed back into the Sturgian lands. I unfortunately received word that 2 of my caravans had been captured. It ended up being Shumson and Thakir's caravans. Well, I guess those extra troops didn't come in handy. The time has come. I started rallying all of the Vortian troops and was getting ready to begin my conquest in the Sturgian lands. Varcheg's my first target. I want to take it over so that way I control who can go in and out of the peninsula. Plus, haven't you heard of divide and conquer before? We'll be dividing the Sturgians into 2 different sections and taking out all of their castles one by one. The Vlandians seem to have a similar idea to us about attacking the Sturgians. They actually happened to be attacking a castle while we were rallying. Somehow, the Sturgians managed to whip up an army and start sieging Uthalheim Castle. This was a little bit frustrating, but I knew that they were going to be easy to take out. Well, who would have guessed? We outnumber them 2 to 1. That was a piece of cake. I defeated the Sturgian army and took 2 Sturgian nobles as prisoners. It also appeared that I freed quite a few Vlandian troops while taking them out. You guys are coming with me. Well, now that we've handled that distraction, I could head back over to Varcheg. Boom, there we go, simple enough. Now I just gotta win the siege. Camp completed, now let's just deploy the trebuchets. Take down those walls, men. I continued pelting the enemies with rocks until I realized, why don't I just send my troops in for this siege? They have 4 trebuchets, surely they can't lose this, right? The stats from the battle started to slowly go up. I couldn't take the anticipation anymore, so I skipped to the end. We did end up winning, but at what cost? We lost so many different troops. A lot of my royal advisors were telling me that I shouldn't even be sending in troops to auto-resolve the battle. That means you guys in the comments. I 100% agreed with my royal advisors that I lost way too many troops when I auto-resolved battles. This gameplay was already filmed with the 700 days mostly. Phase 1 of my plan was successful. I took over Varcheg, and now the Sturgian Empire is split into 2. Now I just need to build my army up once more and take over the settlement and castle on the peninsula. I then once again disbanded the army and started chasing after one random Sturgian party. No one's getting through here if I can help it. Welcome to the Prisoner Club, Zarina. At this point, I was pretty much just taking out all of the Sturgian parties that I possibly could. It kind of reminded me of the times that I was trying to take out all of the Battanian parties back when they still existed. Uh-oh, I completely forgot to assign a project for Varcheg. Thankfully, the loyalty didn't get low enough for it to rebel. I changed the city's main focus to festival and games, so that way we could have increased loyalty. That worked out pretty smoothly. Uh-oh, more Sturgians are attacking the village of Rotobos. Oh, it actually looks like the Vlandians have it covered. I ended up attacking a few more Sturgian parties, and then it was time to get the troops back together. Instead of waiting safely near Varcheg, I headed down the peninsula to the next enemy settlement. There we go, the troops found me, they didn't get lost. We were around 750 strong, and no more troops were coming, so now seemed like the perfect time to begin the siege on Revel. Alright, this time I don't want to actually start the invasion until I see that one of the walls is destroyed. Maybe we'll take less casualties that way. Perfect, that's one of them. Now we just need to get this left side. It wasn't long until both sides were destroyed, and I sent my troops in. We easily won, and it seemed like we didn't take as many casualties as I thought I would. Now that I think about it, that's actually a lie. We're at 300 and we were at 750. That's around 450 troops injured or killed. When I least expected it, a random Sturgian party popped up out of nowhere. I started to chase them until they made a peace proposal. It was almost impossible to decline. they offered me 1.3 million dinars. So obviously, I took it. It looks like we won't be needing the army anymore. I was pretty happy with the outcome of that war. We had gained 1 castle and 2 settlements. There was only 1 more castle on the peninsula that we needed to take. Surely enough, in 21 days, we'll be back. And we won't have a grace period, so we'll be able to declare war on the Sturgians once again. With the grace period now being active, I'm honestly not sure what to do. I was planning on fighting the war for that period of time, but now I don't have to. With all this free time to now think, I decided to give Uthelheim Castle away. I ended up granting it to Clan Vale. Our relationship was only 65 out of 100, so I felt that it would be a good time to give it to them. It would honestly be tragic for Vortia if we had a civil war, so keeping the clans happy is one of my top priorities. Since I was already back at a city, I decided to assign Shumsin and Thakir to be caravan leaders again. Let's just hope that this time they don't get taken out right away. Last time, they barely led their caravans for over 20 days. And if you think about it, I was paying 22,000 per caravan. I'm sure they didn't even make that money back for the kingdom. Well, hopefully this time's different. It appeared that the Sturgians were being attacked by a random kingdom. I couldn't really see who it was, but I had an idea. Once I got close enough, I saw that it was the Khazaits. I think I now know why Sturgia was so desperate to give us money for the peace proposal. They were fighting off 3 different kingdoms at the same time. The Khazaits, Vlandians, and Vortians. Another marriage offer came for Alda. Of course, I rejected it because I didn't want to lose Alda from the clan. Since I already traveled all the way out here, I decided to explore the Khazait land a little bit more. It pretty much just seems like there's grass, sand, and mountains. That's it. Alright, that was kind of boring. Let's get out of here. My 2 days of exploration weren't really successful. They were honestly kind of grueling. So I decided to make up for it by going to an imperial city and selling a whole bunch of loot. I made around 77,000 dinars from it. I then made my way over to Lagetta, another imperial city. Here I recruited some troops and then made my way over to yet even another imperial city. The city was named Ortisia, and I headed straight for the tavern. It appeared that there were no companions here and honestly no good troops to recruit. So I left the city immediately. While I was traveling, I realized that Sylvan and I hadn't really had a lot of alone time lately. We were both off busy managing our own parties. This honestly wasn't ideal, so she ended up rejoining my party and we were now able to adventure together. This gave us ample opportunities to expand the Vortian Empire. Wink wink. I told Ellis to take over Sylvan's position and become the new party leader. She honestly didn't have a lot of experience, but now is the perfect time to get some. Especially since we won't be rushing into any wars, at least for a week or so. I then searched the encyclopedia to look for a new companion that I could potentially take into the kingdom. The first companion that came to mind was Gelthar. He didn't have any negative traits and seemed like an overall good person. I wanted to make sure that I checked out all of my options first though, before I appointed him as a clan leader. I was able to do this pretty quickly because I sent out messengers to all of the potential candidates. It appeared that I had a lot of companions just hanging around. I made sure to recall them to my party and consider them as a potential clan leader. As I was taking things slow and traveling around deciding what I wanted to do, I noticed that Pen Cannoc had a rebellion. Rally the troops! Instead of forming my army when I arrived at the castle, this time I told all of the nobles to join me as we rode over to Pen Cannoc. Hopefully we won't have to worry about the Vlandians beating us this time. Luckily enough, with my small army of 400 troops, we made it to Pen Cannoc. I didn't see a single Vlandian army in sight. I was feeling reassured, knowing that I could finally take this city in peace. I've been wanting it for a while. Wow, I couldn't get even more lucky. A random rebellion party was running right next to me. I took advantage of this and immediately started to attack them. They're basically just handing me Pen Cannoc at this point. Once I attacked the rebels, they declared war on me. I now had a valid reason to besiege the castle. Here goes nothing. I couldn't have planned the siege any better. Right as we were wrapping up building the siege camp, the last bit of my troops arrived. I was feeling a little bit risky, so once one trebuchet was built, I auto-resolved the battle, which honestly probably didn't seem like the best idea. Wow, that's crazy. We went from around 800 troops down to 300. That's an insane loss. If our army was around 1,000 troops, I think we would have lost a lot less. It's time to get another clan in this kingdom, especially since I've been planning it for all this time. I finally made a decision. Gelthar is to be the next big clan leader in the Kingdom of Vortia. He's gonna be leading Clan Valeris. Honestly, that's such a sweet name. It was final. Clan Valeris of Vortia is now official. Clan Valeris definitely gave off a very opulent vibe. They honestly just seemed like a rich clan. Their banner even gave off that aesthetic. It was a very simple red flower, but also looked a little bit elegant. Oh brother, another marriage proposal for Alda. I might just have to accept one of these so that way they stop coming in. Actually nah, it's not worth it to lose Alda. Oh nice, the Sturgians and Vlandians are still at war? I ended up seeing a Sturgian party attacking a Vlandian village. This honestly made me curious on how long they've been fighting for now. Randomly, 2 major events snuck up on me. The rebels of Sianon were destroyed, and Manchug of the Khazates declared war on us. I am not gonna lie, that was not expected. I honestly had no idea why they even declared war on us. It made absolutely 0 sense. We had 0 beef. Oh, I think I know what happened. It looks like they declared war on the Vlandians, and I happen to be in an alliance with the Vlandians. Since I owned quite a few settlements, and we kept going to war with people, I felt like I needed to enact some policies to make sure our loyalty didn't drop too low. The first one I started to vote for was grazing rights. It increased the loyalty of the village by 0.5% while decreasing the village hearth production by 0.25. The next policy that I enacted was forgiveness of debt. It increased every single city's loyalty by 2 per day, but decreased the production of the city by 5%. Honestly, that's a valid trade-off, because the higher our loyalty, the more production we're gonna have in the cities. Welp, it's time to go fight another war, I guess. I now had to head back into the mountainous lands of the Khazates. This was kind of a bummer, because I didn't really like the area, and I didn't want to fight any battles right now. Usually I'm itching for war, but not this time around. I wanted to take out the Sturgians and then move on to a new enemy. Not take on a new enemy before the Sturgians were eliminated. And who would have guessed it, another marriage offer. After finally coming to terms with being in another war, I decided to rally all of the troops. I should have done this earlier, but I'm still coping with the fact that I have to fight off yet another war. I started off deploying my usual strategy against taking out enemy parties, targeting them one by one and picking them off the map. Once I took out a decent amount of parties and had enough troops, I headed to the nearest enemy castle. We then built a siege camp and started constructing a siege tower. I planned on quickly sending my troops in so we didn't have to spend a long time sieging the castle. They would get the job done, especially with the numbers that we had. I finally hurried things up and sent the troops in. We obviously won the battle. This time though, instead of immediately claiming the castle for myself, I decided that we would be able to vote on it. Now that I think about it though, it probably would have been a better idea to just keep it and give it to the clan that I had the lowest relationship with. Things ended up working out though, because I just looked at who I had the lowest relationship with and decided that they got the castle. Alright Genelf, it's your lucky day. Once I officially granted the castle away to Genelf, I went over to recruit some more troops. And I'm not even kidding, I received yet another marriage offer for Alda. There's more people in this kingdom than Alda. I hope all of the other nations know that. Autumn has been the most eventful season that I think we've ever had. After finishing off a battle with one of the Khazate parties, a civil war in the Northern Empire broke out. It was caused to the random conspiracies going around about the Dragon Banner. I wonder who has that. Oh, well this is awkward. There's only one city owned by the rebels. Is that even considered a civil war, or is it just one rebellion city? We see this all the time in the Vlandian Empire. Darn it, I keep distracting myself. I gotta focus in on the war that we're currently fighting, and not ones that are going on around the world. Or do I? I actually have a pretty good idea. Or at least it seems like it's gonna be a good idea. I started to rally my troops and headed over to the last Sturgian castle on the peninsula. I then decided to propose peace to the Khazates. It seemed like they instantly accepted and we were no longer at war with them. I could now declare war on the Sturgians once again. Uh-oh, why is it not letting me select a decision? I don't have enough influence. What do you mean I have over 1,000? Oh no, I think I accidentally selected the wrong option when making peace with the Khazaits. So I accidentally spent over 1,000 influence to force peace instead of consulting the Vortian nobles for a decision. This really stinks. I don't even know how I'm going to be able to afford to raise an army anymore. I don't think I'll be able to. Well, I guess we won't be taking out the Sturgians today after all. This really stinks. I ended up heading over to one of the nearby settlements and started selling my loot out of pity. Maybe making some dinars will make me feel a little bit better about what just happened.